Hey guys, what's going on? My name is Arden, and today we're going to continue my weird little vlogs of the Green Lantern animated series. So this is episode 6, Lost Planet. Oh man, this is going to be a good one. So, the heroes are flying through on Aya, like going to look for more Green Lanterns, and I think they finally figured out where the ring is from the first Green Lantern that died during the pilot. So they make their way to this planet and they notice there's an asteroid hurtling towards it. So they manage to kind of use the ship and their own built-in lanterns, because it's about to hit the planet. It has about like 5 minutes to go. So instead of, they don't quite push the asteroid away, but they kind of push it off course just enough that they bought themselves 6 hours to evacuate everyone from the planet before it's destroyed. So they land on the planet, and they start looking for survivors, and importantly, they're also looking for the Green Lantern too. So they find these 3 people who like crashed on here, and they're just kind of around the fire, and they're pretty friendly at first. So the Green Lanterns and Aya and Razor kind of agree to work with them and split up and try and find the Green Lantern. As they're doing so, Kilowog's kind of with this warrior guy, Hal Jordan gets paired with this really funny-looking alien that doesn't speak, and Aya gets paired with this girl. The girl manages to trick Aya and steal the ship itself, so they try to escape, and the warrior turns on Kilowog, and those two almost get away. But Razor has an interesting encounter with a fellow named Saint Walker. And Saint is able to kind of overpower Razor, even though he's not a lantern. He's just really good and has a lot of these, like, kind of, I forget the pressure points that he uses on Razor to just, like, instantly paralyze him. And he gives Razor the green power ring, saying, like, oh, I'm not using that, but here you go, like, you can take that. And so Razor meets up with Hal Jordan, and they go and manage to stop Aya from, like, flying away. And they stop the convicts, tie them up, and they're about to leave, trying to flee the planet, when Hal Jordan notices something's wrong. So when Jordan was looking for Razor and everyone else, like, the planet was actually kind of helping him. Trees would move out of his way in the direction he needed to go. The ground almost swallowed him up until it noticed that he had a green power ring, and then it left him alone. So Jordan kind of gets this idea of, like, oh, like, this planet's alive. And he manages to give the planet the power ring, which is what it was heading for. It recognized that this planet has a strong will of its own, and it wanted to join with the planet as a new lantern. The planet takes the ring, and it becomes a Green Lantern, so this massive little ring of, like, green energy appears around it. It knocks the meteor away no problem, and it introduces itself as Mogo. And Mogo has been capturing people. That's who the 3 people on the planet were. Mogo captures bad people and keeps them there until they redeem themselves. So they just become better people, because these guys are all like criminals of sorts and not very nice. So basically they're like, oh cool, well we just made a very, very cool new friend and a new Green Lantern. And Saint Walker just kind of watches them from afar and they leave, and that's the end of the episode. So like I said, I was really excited about this episode. I love Mogo. Okay, we'll get into that in a sec. So let's just go through my thoughts. I have my notes up here instead, so I'm not looking down like at like paper notes as often, because I was dumb and didn't think to do this. So now we are doing it, and it should be a lot easier. So one thing I noticed is, like, the facial expressions are still weird. Even on a kind of cartoony character like Aya, she doesn't look very emotional, and none of them do that very well. They don't convey emotion very well with their animation style. I do like it overall. Like, the planet looked great. The way they animated, like, Mogo and how he uses, like, the earth and the trees to sort of animate himself, or, like, to interact with people, I guess you could say. However you want to put it. That's all done really well, but facial expressions are still kind of iffy on this show. They really do, like, instant stakes with the asteroid, but it ends up being a very ancillary part of the plot. Something that's, like, kind of forgotten about for the most of the plot and instantly fixed by Mogo being Mogo. There's, like, the message of this, I guess, is Hal Jordan doesn't like to play by the rules, and apparently now Kilowog doesn't either. And so there's this whole little kind of underlying thing about, like, regulation and following it, and Kilowog, like, wanting to follow the rules, and kind of reprimanding Hal Jordan for not, and then kind of accepting that sometimes you have to break the rules. So at one point Hal Jordan orders him to leave, and he just refuses and sticks around to help Hal, and he's like, well, sometimes you gotta break the rules. I guess it ties the episode nicely together, but they didn't really do much with it. Like, I feel I've talked about it just now more than they did in the episode, and so they should have just focused on Mogo, because Mogo was so cool, and when I saw the title of this episode was Lost Planet, I'm like, oh boy, I get to talk about this now. Like, that's so awesome. So, I don't know, I was so happy to see Mogo, and so happy when that reveal started to unfold itself, and because, like, he's my favorite Green Lantern character, for sure. And I'll kind of get into why in a sec, but it also features one of my other favorite Green Lantern characters in this episode, which is St. Walker, and he'll have a very cool role with the Blue Lanterns going forward. So I'm so happy to see, like, two of my very favorite Green Lantern characters show up in this episode. The Blue Lanterns, I don't know if they show up later on, but I do know that Razor was supposed to be one in Season 2, if the Season 2 had happened. And I think that's really interesting, and we even get an early fostering of that here, because Razor is the one who only interacts with St. Walker. Like, no one else even meets him in this episode. And they had a really interesting relationship, and knowing Razor's story, like, I really want to see it. It would have been cool to see him go over to the blue side, but that didn't happen, unfortunately, but still really cool. My favorite episode so far, because of the gradual way we see Mogo helping Hal more and more. Like, they kind of hinted it, and if you really know Mogo, like, it's pretty instantly obvious, but it's just such a great way they gradually show it to someone who might not have heard of this character before, and a really cool episode. So if you don't know who Mogo is, you should definitely check this out. It explains him nicely and what's cool about him. I like the exiles on Mogo. They're very mysterious, but they're all, like, really well designed and instantly distinct. They don't have a huge role, but each one of them stands out, and is kind of unforgettable as a character. Like, they're not, like, gonna move mountains with their performance, but they're all a little, like, interesting. Like, there's the girl who was with Aya, and she, like, tricks her so easily, but, like, Aya's, like, a few weeks old, so it works well and it makes sense. Like, she's naive. She wouldn't know about deception as well as everyone else. So the girl, like, pretends to have a broken ankle, and so Aya takes her to the ship, and then she instantly gets up, walks around, and disables Aya, and it's like, yeah, kind of saw that coming. But she doesn't look like just a random female character they put together. Like, they actually look like they spent some time designing her, and, like, her clothing's distinct, her face, and, like, skin colors, all the distinct alien stuff, and all three of them are like that. So I was really impressed that they took, like, 3 side characters and took the time to kind of design them all individually and stuff. So it was a pretty cool, like, it wasn't much of a surprise that they all turned out to be dicks and criminals, but, like, it was a really neat thing. I don't think we've gone through an episode yet where death and war aren't major themes of the episode, which is really remarkable for a kids show based on a comic book. I didn't remember that, like, the first time I watched, like, a good chunk of this series, so I was really impressed to see it, and I'm like, oh wow, like, once again, we have characters talking about death, talking about the costs of it, and talking about, like, other characters that have died. Like, obviously it's not a graphic series, it's still a kid's show, but they deal with these serious themes, and on a recurring basis. So I was really impressed with that. Really blew my mind. So like I said, Mogo is awesome. My favorite Green Lantern. He was voiced by Kevin Michael Richardson again in this episode, which I thought was amazing. That's the guy who voiced Kilowog and a few other characters by now. Like, man, that guy can act. Like, the voices are all similar, but you wouldn't know they were voiced by the same guy unless, like, you found out, like me. Like, I just happened to see that online when I was going through, getting some little information for this. So, a really phenomenal voice actor, and he deserves a lot of praise. So yeah, best episode yet, and it's probably just because I'm a fan of Mogo. Alan Moore created this character, for the record. He introduced him in, like, this excellent and kind of familiar story to this one, but it's a little bit different. And it actually is retold completely in the Green Lantern Emerald Knights animated movie. And that's like, it's like the Animatrix, like a series of kind of short animated vignettes about different Green Lantern stories. And one of them is Mogo's story, and it's the actual story, like, that Mogo first appeared in the comics. And it's not the best movie in the world, but Mogo's part in that movie is really good and definitely worth checking out because I'm just such a big fan of this character. Alright, so that's enough talking about this episode. I probably ranted a lot longer than I meant to there. Other than that, I put out Old Man Logan, the complete story, yesterday. I hope you guys liked that. Mostly positive receptions. I did get a couple little complaints about some of my audio. I'm working on that. It's a new mic and it's a little iffy. I just gotta figure out how to filter it properly because I'm sure it works. It does work fine. It just, there's a lot of noise coming through, so I gotta filter it out, and then that distorts my voice if I filter it too much. So I think I got a good... I had a different recording I did today for a character I'll leave you to envision as to who it could be. Envision is vision. I'm going to be talking about vision soon. So I did that recording today and it sounded a little better, so hopefully it'll improve. And then other than that, we have Convergence this week. I did mention that I'm going to be doing some X-Men stuff coming up. Going to be doing some more X-Men stuff coming up, so look forward to that too. And other than that, don't forget to like, subscribe, and keep reading comics.